To become a track and field legend, you have to win a whole bunch of races, but also win big while you're at it. And those wins start piling up long before you ever get to the pros. But if you're a real fan of track and field, then you know that some athletes clearly stand out as the best of the best. Because Sydney McLaughlin-Levrone, Noah Lyles, and of course Allyson Felix have won more championship medals than just about anyone else. Because those three names also share something else in common. Because when they were young, they skipped almost their entire college careers in order to do it. And that is a big deal, because college track and field is so competitive that it might as well be professional track anyway. So we never really got to see what they could do with some of the world's best young talent challenging to take them down. But what would have happened if they actually ran track in college? Because the internet gives us just about everything we would need to figure out the truth. So that is what I'm here for, because I love track and field, especially at the college level. And like I said before, it's way more competitive than most people realize. And that's even if you're destined to become one of the all-time greats. So I apologize in advance because this is a longer video, but I figured if we're gonna do this, we might as well do it right. Remember, you don't have to agree with me. That is what the comment section is for, and I try to read them all. And if anything that I say actually connects with you, it is always greatly appreciated if you would like and subscribe so you don't miss anything else happening on this channel. For the first name on this list, I had to make an exception because Sydney McLaughlin-Levrone technically ran in college at the University of Kentucky, but she didn't stick around for long and then became an Olympic gold medalist and a world record holder. But she could have done all of that while also wearing a college uniform. So what would have happened if she kept competing after her freshman year of college? Because the truth would have likely changed the course of track and field history. But first things first, we have to recap what her first year of college actually was. Because as a freshman in 2018, she ran the indoor 200 and the indoor 400 and actually won the SEC championship in the 400. But she would lose in both events at the NCAA indoor meet to Kendall Ellis of USC in the 400, running a time of 50.54. And in the 200, she would finish 4th overall, running as fast as 22.68 in the prelims. And the eventual champion was Gabby Thomas, a future Olympian who was a junior at Harvard at the time. But when she went outdoors, she ran the 200, 400, and of course the 400 hurdles. She didn't lose a race in any of them and ran away with, literally, the 400 hurdle title. But if she had kept it rolling into her sophomore year, she could have taken it up a notch. In reality, as a pro, in 2019, she only ran indoor one time, and that was in the 500 meter. But had she run that time as a sophomore, it would have rated in the top 10 on the all-time collegiate leaderboards. And the funny thing is, if she just repeated her indoor 400 from her freshman year, she would have been the collegiate leader by a full second indoors as a sophomore. And in the 200, she would have rated as the second best 200 throughout the entire season, losing only to Kayla White of North Carolina A&T. With an indoor 400 championship and 18 points overall, she would have moved Kentucky from 21st at the NCAA indoors all the way up to 4th. But outdoors, she would have dominated the 400 hurdles, running far away from anyone who dared to line up against her, running 52.23. And that year as a pro, she actually ran the 400 meter outdoors one time. But the performance that she put down would have rated her second overall throughout the entire NCAA. She would have lost to Wadaline Jonathas of South Carolina, but even still, she would have added a gold and silver medal to her collection and moved Kentucky from 14th at the NCAA outdoor meet all the way up to 5th. And if you're keeping score at home, that would have been 3 individual NCAA championships through her sophomore year. And she would also have, just for fun, a 200-meter indoor title at the SEC championships. But in 2020, there was no indoor or outdoor championship for the NCAA, and we all know why. So her junior year would have continued on into 2021, and she would transition to running the short hurdles, both indoors and outdoors. But she likely wouldn't have scored in the 60-meter hurdles indoors, and instead run the 200 and 400 at the NCAA meet. She would have likely finished 4th in the 200 indoors this year, losing to her teammate, one Abby Steiner. And her only 400 that season was a 51-16 outdoors. And duplicating that performance indoors would have likely gotten her 3rd overall at the NCAA meet, behind Kaylin Rogers and a Thing Mo. And those points would have moved Kentucky from 13th to 8th at the NCAA indoor meet. But Sydney's outdoor season would prove her dominance and her versatility, running the 100 hurdles in 12:65. And that time alone could have gotten her 2nd at the NCAA championships. And we already know she would have run away with the 400 hurdles, by now putting her stamp on the event as the world record holder. Kentucky would have vaulted all the way up from 21st to 4th at the NCAA outdoor meet. And Sydney would now have medals at the NCAA meet in the indoor 200 and indoor 400, outdoor 400, outdoor 100 hurdles, and have been undefeated in the outdoor 400 hurdles. And rounding out her career in 2022, she did not run any indoor meets in her professional career in reality. And assuming she didn't run indoors, for whatever the reason, she still ran 12:75 in the 100 hurdles. She'd not only make the NCAA final, but probably get 3rd in the race. But the 400 hurdles, she would do something masterful, breaking her own world records again, running away far from the competition. And those points for Kentucky would have moved the Wildcats all the way up to 2nd, their best finish at the NCAA championships in her entire career. So, if Sydney McLaughlin never left college early, she likely would have gone down as not just the most dominant, but the most versatile women's track athlete we have ever seen in the collegiate ranks. She would have individual medals in 5 different events and go down as a generational talent. She would be the queen of the track, the likes of which we've never seen before. And maybe we'd never get to see it again. But what do I know? It's just a what if. But the next track star that comes to mind never ran in college at all, which is funny because he was originally supposed to. Noah Lyles is the most dominant sprinter in the post-Usain Bolt era, and he turned professional immediately after graduating high school. But that was before NIL, for college athletes was even a thing. And if it was, he likely would have no reason to skip college entirely. So what would have happened if he actually ran track in college? And the answer is wilder than you ever could have imagined. But first things first, we already know where Noah Lyles would have run track in college. The University of Florida in the SEC Conference. Noah and his brother Josephus committed to run for the Gators before the end of his senior year of high school. And he only changed his mind after running in the Olympic trials in 2016 and later signing a contract with Adidas. But for the purpose of this what if, we're only focusing on Noah. So he would have joined Grant Holloway as a freshman to lead the Gators men's track program. In 2017 as a pro, he only ran indoors a few times. He ran the 60-meter dash twice, and his season's best was 6.63 seconds. He also ran the 200 once, and that was in 21:02 indoors. So we're gonna have to do a little more digging to see how fast he could have run with an actual collegiate season. He ran the 300-meter indoors 3 times, the slowest of which was 32.67, and the fastest of which was 31.87, which would have been the collegiate record at that point. And the fastest 300-meter collegiate times run that season were by two Florida Gators, led by Grant Holloway in 32.80. But Noah's 300 was faster than Kunle Fasasi's 300 by 1.22 seconds, and he also ran the 200. So we're going to assume he would have beat him in the 200 with a complete season by at least 0.6 seconds. That would land him at 20.42, the second fastest collegiate 200-meter run that season, and his 60-meter at 6.63 would still have ranked him 12th in the nation. In reality, Florida finished second in the NCAA indoor meet that season without Noah, and they only lost by half a point. So adding him onto that roster, even if he only scored 8 points in the 200, would easily have won them the national title. But in 2017 outdoors, Noah would have set the track world on fire as a freshman, because in reality, he ran 1990 in the 200 meter into a minus headwind in the month of May, which is before the NCAA meet even was scheduled. And his best 100 that year was a highly wind-aided 995, which still raced well enough to get him into the NCAA meet, obviously. But he would have dominated the 200 outdoors at NCAAs, getting revenge on Christian Coleman, who he would have lost to as a freshman indoors. And Florida already won the 2017 outdoor meet in reality. So adding Noah Lyles would have given them the meet running away. As a sophomore, Noah could have taken it up a notch, duplicating his actual performances from the indoor 60 meter at 6.57 seconds, and outdoors running 988 and 1965, both wind legal. For those keeping score, that 200 outdoors would already be his second all-time collegiate record. And we're going to just assume that if he actually ran the 200 indoors, he would run about a half second slower than what he ran outdoors, which is a brief approximation that many sprinters use. So if he actually ran 20.15 in the indoor 200 that season, he would have projected as fourth in the 60 meter at the NCAAs and still second in the 200 meter. And he would have lost, potentially, to Elijah Hall of the University of Houston, who set a brand new collegiate record that year. But outdoors, he could have become a double champion in the 100 meter and the 200 meter. And Florida already won the indoor meet without Noah's help in reality. And that would have been 3 straight championships. Yet they originally lost the outdoor meet by 10 points to Georgia. So adding the king of the track, Noah Lyles, would have been a 10-point swing, where instead of losing by 10, they could have won by 10. And now with 4 straight national titles, Noah would have rolled into 2019, a year where he only ran outdoors in reality. But he ran 986 in the 100, wind legal, and 1950 in the 200 meter into a slight minus headwind. Florida already won the 2019 indoor meet in reality, so they didn't even need his help there. But outdoors, they lost again, this time to Texas Tech. And Divine Oduduru of Texas Tech ran 986 in the 100 meter at nationals. But rewriting history, even assuming that Noah only got second in the 100 meter, he would have won the 200 and it wouldn't have been close. And those 18 points would have moved the Gators into the title position, making it 6 straight college championships for the Florida Gators. And in 2020, there was no NCAA meet, indoors or outdoors, and we all know why. So Noah could have come back to college one more year in 2021, this time joining forces with Joseph Fahnbulleh to lead the Gators. Assuming a full season of indoor training, he should be at least as fast as he was his sophomore year in the 60 and the 200 indoors. He likely would have placed 4th in the 60, but run away with the 200-meter title. His first indoors, might I add. But even adding Noah's 15 points would have placed the Gators no higher than third at the NCAA indoor meet, the first time they didn't win the title with him on the team. And for his senior year outdoor campaign, he could have run 9:95 in the 100 and 19:52 in the 200. This would have him in line to compete to win the 100-meter title, but would guarantee him no higher than fourth based on the national leaderboards. But he would have run away with the 200-meter title again, giving Florida a 1-2 punch of him and Fonbele, beating Terrence Laird, who might have won the 100-meter title. But still, Florida probably would have lost that meet anyway, finishing no higher than third, even with Noah Lyles points in the bank. So the answer to what would have happened if Noah Lyles went to college is he would have become the collegiate record holder in 2 events and won a national title in the 100-meter outdoors and at least one of them in the 200-meter indoors. But in the 200-meter outdoors, he would be the king of the track, going undefeated in 4 straight championships. And he would have made Florida men's track and field a dynasty for the ages, with 6 back-to-back NCAA championships, indoors and outdoors. And Noah Lyles is already one of the greatest sprinters that the world has ever seen. But if he went to college, he could have gone down as the greatest sprinter the NCAA has ever known. But keep in mind, Noah Lyles was not the first athlete to suddenly skip college and sign with Adidas. More than a decade before, someone else did it, and she never looked back after it. Allyson Felix is a world champion and an Olympic gold medalist, but honestly, she has the reputation of being the LeBron James of women's sprinting. They both graduated high school in 2003 and became the Gatorade Athletes of the Year and competed at a higher level for a longer amount of time than almost anyone has ever done, because she's won more Olympic track medals than any other American athlete, and that is saying a whole lot. She turned professional out of high school and never looked back after it, and even became an Olympic silver medalist at the age of 18. Her decision to skip competing in college entirely occurred before social media or even legitimate high-definition TV was ever really a thing. But what would have happened if she actually did compete in college? Because we already know where she would have run. USC in the Pac-12. It's the same college she attended anyway, while she was a young professional sprinter. And I love what-if scenarios, because the internet already gives us just about everything we would need to figure out what could have happened. But in Allyson's case, she would have attended college before accurate records were kept, at least online for every college track meet. So the real question that I'm asking is, what would have happened if America's greatest track and field athlete competed in this generation's era of the NCAA? Because she'd have to go up against Sha'Carri Richardson, Abby Steiner, and Julian Alfred in order to complete her career by the end of 2023. So here is a breakdown of what Allyson Felix's career could look like if she actually gave it a go in Division I. And the truth is wilder than you could ever imagine. But before I get into all that, you have to understand just how good Allyson Felix really was. She was the nation's best high school track athlete out of the state of California, but went on to qualify for the World Championships in the finals during her senior year. And after what would have been her freshman year of college, she made the Olympic team and won a silver medal when she was there. But for the purpose of this what if, we're not touching anything she did at World Championships or Olympic races. We're just going to assume that her season best performances outside of those competitions would hold up as her season's best in the NCAA. And her freshman year at USC will now start in 2019, where she would run 7:32 in the 60-meter dash indoors which was actually her fastest time as a pro in reality. But her 200-meter indoors would convert to 22:65, so she'd finish 10th indoors in the 60-meter dash at the NCAA meet, barely missing out on making the final. But her teammate, Twanisha Terry, would win the entire event to put points on the board for USC. And her 200-meter dash race would be a lot closer than you think, because she would win the NCAA championship, but by 1/100th of a second, beating Kayla White of North Carolina A&T, putting 10 points on the board for USC. That would make a huge difference, but they'd still lose to Arkansas at the end by 2 points. But at the NCAA outdoor meet, she would get pushed to her limit because she'd make the 100-meter final, qualifying 3 Lady Trojans into the race. But they'd all lose to Sha'Carri Richardson, with Allyson coming in 7th. But she would get her revenge in the 200-meter dash, where she would beat not just Sha'Carri Richardson, but her teammate, Angie Anellis, to go back-to-back as the indoor and outdoor champion in her signature event. And those points would be enough for USC to win the national championship, overtaking Arkansas in the process. But this is where things get interesting, because in 2020, there was no outdoor or indoor national championship, and we all know why. So Allyson wouldn't touch the track again until 2021. Her 60-meter dash would be greatly improved, so much so that she'd likely finish 5th at the NCAA indoor meet. That's behind her teammate Twanisha Terry once again, and Kemba Nelson of Oregon. But even though she would run a new PR in the indoor 200, she would actually lose in the final, because she would only likely finish 3rd behind Tamara Clark of Alabama and Abby Steiner of Kentucky, kicking off a brand new rivalry between the both of them. And USC would only finish 3rd in that meet. But outdoors, she would bring her new speed to the 100 as well, running as fast as 11:04. But she'd still only finish 5th at the NCAA championship meet, this time losing to Cambria Sturgis of North Carolina A&T. And in the 200, she'd failed to repeat as champion once again, losing still to Tamara Clark and Cambria Sturgis herself. But ironically, after all that, USC already won that championship, even without Allyson's help. So with her on the team, those points would only add to the total. So heading into Allyson's junior year, she would make a huge adjustment, focusing her energy on the 400 instead of the 60 and 100. She wouldn't just make the final of the 400, she'd get 2nd overall at the NCAA meet behind Talitha Diggs of Florida. And everything we've got to go off of says that race is going down to a photo finish. But she would double with the 200, but she wouldn't win the race. She'd finish 2nd once again to Abby Steiner. USC would only finish 6th overall at the meet, and Allyson would still have to wait for another crack at a championship, with Abby Steiner standing in her way. Cause by now, I'm sure you can see where this story is headed. Allyson would run the 400 and the 200 outdoors at the NCAAs, but the story ain't gonna change much. She'd lose the 400 to Talitha Diggs and lose the 200 to Abby Steiner. She might even get 3rd, because Favor O'Feely was actually really fast in that race. And with some of her fast teammates gone, USC would need every one of Allyson's points to just crack the top 10 at the NCAA meet. So with one final season remaining, Allyson Felix's senior year, she would still be gunning for her 3rd individual national title. Abby Steiner would finally be out of the picture, but Julian Alfred and Britton Wilson would be ready to run new collegiate records in their events. So Allyson likely wouldn't win a title, either indoors or outdoors, in a 200 or a 400. Don't get me wrong, she would be on the podium, likely finishing 2nd in almost any race that she ran. That's even including the 100, because she started figuring it out by now. But it doesn't include the 60, because she's learned to avoid that event. USC wouldn't be competitive at the NCAA championship meets, But Allyson Felix, as an individual, would likely have just about as many medals of any color as any woman has ever won at those meets. She'd have 12 medals to her name, and double gold, all the way back as a freshman, both indoors and outdoors in the 200. The truth is that the modern era of women's sprinting in the NCAA is by far the best that it's ever been. An era that Allyson Felix herself helped to inspire. In all likelihood, she'd probably be even better than she was because her competition demands it. She's the winningest woman in American track and field history, who was honestly just getting started by that point in her career. We may never know what she would have done if she chose to run track in college, but we do know that she will go down as one of the greatest to ever do it on any track, at any level, whenever she was on the starting line. When you are truly great in track and field, you have to challenge yourself. And basic logic would tell us that the best way to do it is to turn pro. But like I said before, college track and field is so competitive that it might as well be professional anyway. Sydney McLaughlin-Levrone, Noah Lyles, and Allyson Felix hardly ever ran at that level, if at all. But if you're anything like me, you have to wonder how great it would have been to watch if they actually did. I'm Coach Rob, and thank you so much for watching this video. And if you want to see more content like this, then please like and subscribe.